What is up? What's going on? Welcome back to another episode of Off the Schneid. It's Wednesday. We're talking best ball. We're drafting as always. Little late getting started a second there. I was just reading the breakdown of the civil suit against Joe Mixon that just got released on Twitter. Drew Davenport is your favorite fantasy football and just football in general advice giver, all things legal on Twitter. So go give him a follow. I reposted it on my page as well. So if you follow me, you'll see it there. Interesting stuff. As obviously you can see around me here, I'm a massive Bengals fan. Never been a big, Joe Mixon guy. Obviously his transgressions in college, and then the stuff, the day before the AFC Championship game last year, and then this nonsense that occurred over the summer is a little bit crazy. So once I get into it a little bit, I'm going to check my Joe Mixon exposure quickly. I'll share that with you guys. I've never been, like I said, a big fan. I've never been a big drafter. I've never been a big believer. Joe Mixon is just really not that good of a running back, to be honest with you, as someone that watches every single Bengals game every single year since he came into the league. And before that, I just am not a big believer in Joe Mixon, not a big fan. And I'm hoping that Chase Brown is the beneficiary of this ridiculousness, that's happening with Joe Mixon here. So we're going to get into it a little bit. We're talking higher stakes. It's if you couldn't tell by the thumbnail for the episode, we're going to be doing a pit bull, $75 buy-in. It's not quite the Dalmatian. It's not a Mastiff. It's not a big dog, $500, $1,000, $75 buy-in. Pretty relatively high stakes. Three Best Ball Mania entries essentially is what that is. So we're going to talk a little bit of strategy, a little bit of difference in strategy between, a higher stakes draft and then a, Best Ball Mania, puppies, things like that, where you can take more swings and do some crazier things, a little more interesting things, take more chances. But with these higher stakes, higher advancing, contests, I guess it's a little bit of a different strategy, at least for me. So what I'm going to do, let's pull up the website. Let's pull up Underdog here. And like I said, we're going to take a quick peek. We're going to take a quick peek at my Joe Mixon exposure, just out of curiosity here. This is my big board exposure pre-draft. Mac Jones pretty high, obviously. Let's see where Joe Mixon comes at. 2%, 2 drafts out of 98. Like I said, not a big fan. Let's go back to the more important regular season best ball. 265 drafts in so far. Maybe a couple puppies. I'm sure those are probably puppies, actually. Maybe that's one Best Ball Mania. Hard to say, but yeah, I'm really not a big believer in Joe Mixon. I think there's no way that he escapes all this mess, all this legal nonsense. Again, check out my Twitter, reposted Drew Davenport. Go follow Drew Davenport. Breaks it down really well. And I don't think there's any way that Joe Mixon doesn't get suspended this year. I think it would be wild. It's way crazier than Alvin Kamara getting in a bit of a crazy bar fight. As unimpressed as people were with that, Joe Mixon is multiple time offender. Yeah, wild stuff. And this is all coming out before the season. So it's going to get interesting for Joe Mixon. And, I'm not going to shed a tear for him. So anyways, let's get into it. I want to touch on exposure a little bit with the higher stakes again. So we're going to get into that. Let's go to we're going to talk about the Dalmatians quickly, and then the difference between Dalmatian and the pit bulls. So maxed out the Dalmatian 2, 3 entries max. I got my 3 in. And then how I'm looking at these things, if we look at the Dalmatian advance rate here, let's check out the rules. It's basically 4 of 12 in the first pod move on, top 3 of 8, and then 2 of 8 move on to the final 102 person group. And that's kind of interesting. That's a big difference between this pit bull and the Dalmatian, and maybe not a big difference, but it's certainly a difference in strategy and how I'm personally looking at these two different tournaments. If we look at, let's go to the pit bull now and look at the difference here. So not like 2 of 12. Yeah, that's a big difference right there in the opening round. 2 of 12 move on, and then 2 of 10, and then 1 of 10 for a final of 25 entries. So that's a very, very, very small final group that you got to kind of beat out. So if we're looking at how to win money and get as far as we can in these tournaments, for me it's all about advance rate. You gotta try to get as many teams as possible. Hopefully every single team you draft advances, right? And then you're making money. But you want to get to the second, third round. And how do we do that with the Dalmatian? I didn't really care if I finished fourth. If you're 1 through 4 and you're in your pot of 12, you're moving on, you made money, you're laughing, and then just take it from there. 3 of 8, that's almost 50% of the group. Obviously, math is easy. So there you go. It's a little bit of a different, kind of breakdown where you got 2 of 10 in the pit bull, and then 1 of 10 to get to the final 102 group. So with the Dalmatian, I really didn't see correlation being important literally at all. You could say that correlation is more important week 17 in the Dalmatian than weeks 15 and 16 for sure, because again, 4 of 12 in the regular season, 3 of 8, right? And then that 102 group in the finals for the Dalmatian, you're kind of rolling the dice, and realistically, it's hard to say who's going to get there and if they're going to be correlated when they do. So, mini stacks, stacking your quarterback with maybe only one wide receiver, you're not taking those huge swings, and you're playing those floor guys is more the play for me. With 25 entries in the final, correlation is not important at all, in my opinion, in this pit bull. Realistically, you just want to get there. That's all fine and good, small stacks. And if you're going to look for correlation, what I'm doing, and I'll show this real quick, my if you've been watching the channel a little while, I've pulled this up a few times. Geez, give me a second here. Pulled this up a few times. This is something that I built for myself. So, build something out for yourself. I know there's some resources you can get it. Fantasy Dog Pound has this on his Discord. You can check it out there. It's not quite this I built myself. So it's, I can pull this up while I'm drafting and then look at who's playing who weeks 15 and 16. And if I'm looking for correlation in these pit bulls specifically. So a team that pops off is the San Francisco 49ers pass catchers. Weeks 15 and 16, they got a pretty cake matchup against Arizona and then Baltimore. Baltimore's improving. I get it in the secondary, but they should be still weak in the secondary. So that's a team worth targeting if it's a toss-up situation, or you're just taking a one-off and you're looking to hopefully advance. The 49ers might be a good team to do that. Pittsburgh Steelers pass catchers, Indianapolis and Cincinnati. I see Cincinnati's secondary, my team. I see them taking a step back. Obviously, they lost Von Bell, Jesse Bates the third, sorry. And that's a team that I can look to again one-off or correlate with Kenny Pickett. New Orleans Saints, that's another one. Obviously, the running backs you can see there. So this is something that I built for myself, and I like to pull up when I'm drafting. Especially these pit bulls where, again, weeks 15 and 16 might be way more important than week 17, because once you get there, it is what it is. There's 15 teams. That's a huge sweat in that week 17, regardless of who you have on your team. And yes, correlation's cool, but it's really, really not as important, in my opinion. It's more important to get there, and we'll take it from there. That's kind of the way I'm looking at it. So let's pop up the Underdog website again here. So there we go. So what are some strategies that I'm looking to do in these higher stakes, where more teams may advance, and where are you going to be able to find an edge? So for sure, the Dalmatian. And I am putting the pit bull in there a little bit, but the Dalmatian is absolutely where this matters. I put elite quarterback and I think elite tight end much higher than in my regular best ball, best ball mania puppies and things like that. So if you look at some of these Dalmatian teams, the first team I drafted, I was 4th overall, and I picked Travis Kelce. Then I followed it up with Patrick Mahomes. There's my elite tight end, and it's correlated with my quarterback. So that's fantastic. And then it's easy to bring back, a Tyler Boyd. And that's all I took with this. I guess I did bring Kadarius Toney in there Not sure I love that one. I'd rather Sky more, but it is what it is. But either way, you find a little bit of correlation there where you can, where it makes sense. I got Jalen Hyatt with Cam Akers. What else do I got? Doesn't really matter. Tampa Bay and Carolina. So I'm finding correlation where I can, but it's not as important. It's more important that I advance and I get to that second, third round of the playoffs, or first or second round of the playoffs, and hopefully win some money there. So that's the way that I'm looking at these higher stakes. I'm pushing up elite quarterbacks and I'm pushing up elite tight ends. And then you kind of lock down that position where it gives you an edge, especially at tight end. Travis Kelce's obviously a huge edge at tight end. So if you can get him in some of these drafts, you have an edge over the rest of the field in your pod. And that's my opinion. Maybe it's right or wrong, but that's what I'm doing. And then I'm looking at, late in the draft, and it does depend on how I've drafted. I'll look at a Pitbull that I did the other day. Shout out Fantasy Dog Pound in the chat. I did this on his stream. I wasn't obviously in the stream, but I was in the draft with him. So looking at some of the floor plays that I took my shots a little bit early on some high ceiling guys, Devontae Smith, Drake London, even Deontay Johnson to an extent, Cortland Sutton to an extent. But then I brought it back with some, in what I see as high floor plays that can enter my lineup and, help get me a decent score week in, week out. And those are guys like Tyler Boyd, Alan Lazard. I'm thinking KJ Osborne is one of those guys. Darius Slayton's caught the second most, I think, passes from Daniel Jones throughout the preseason so far, behind Darren Waller, who I also have. But there you go. I got, what I perceive as an elite tight end, potentially the tight end 4. That's where I have Darren Waller ranked. And then elite quarterback with Jalen Hurts. So that's what I'm doing. I'm backing up my elite tight end with my elite quarterback with an elite tight end. And then I'm more or less done at the position and I can fill it out later. And if you have an elite tight end and elite quarterback, you're not drafting 3. You're never going to draft it. It is what it is. If guys get injured, if Jalen Hurts goes down, it is what it is. I'm not going to, what can I do? I'm not drafting a third quarterback thinking Jalen Hurts might get hurt. That's just, you can't draft scared. Draft as if you're right. I always do. Any good drafter, you draft as if you're correct all the time. And then you live by the sword and you die by the sword. So that's what I like to do here. Again, I like to go for the high ceiling plays early in the draft. Again, guys like, Devontae Smith, Chris Olave, the high ceiling guys early in the draft. And then later in the draft, I bring it back with some high floor guys, Tyler Boyd, Alan Lazard, guys like that. If that makes sense, that's what I do. So there's a little tidbit and a little peek behind the curtain of how I do it. And then late in the draft, I'm simply cut and dry, period, end of story. I am never drafting guys that I think could or will get cut. I am just not taking a chance on that. I'm not burning $100 in a Dalmatian. I'm not burning $75 in a Pitbull on guys like Cordarrelle Patterson. I'm just not taking him. Does he make that team? Most likely. Does he play a role? Most likely. But he could be cut for very, very little dead money. So I'm not taking a chance on him. Isaiah Hodgins is another guy. I like him. He played well last year, but I'd rather take a guy like Darius Slayton here because Isaiah Hodgins can be cut for zero dead money whatsoever. He signed for less than $1 million. I'm just not taking a chance on a guy like that. Justin Ross, another guy. Yeah, he's getting all this buzz, all this hype in camp, but he could be cut. He could not even make this team. He could be a practice squad guy. All of these things are possibilities for Justin Ross. I'm just not taking that risk with these higher buy-in tournaments. It's just not for me. So that's a little bit of what I'm doing in these drafts and how I'm looking at it. Again, a little bit of Joe Mixon talk. Let's jump into a Pitbull draft. If you're in the chat, hit that like and subscribe button for me. It really helps out. Still kind of trying to grow this channel out. So, share it with a friend. Again, like and subscribe. Almost filled this 91.4%. This will be my third Pitbull, probably my last. I'll probably only do 3 of these guys. Maybe if I do get it up, I like round numbers, so I'll probably do 5. If I do any more than I'll share my location. If I do any more than 3, it'll be 5 most likely. So waiting for 4 people. Jump in if you're in the chat if you want to draft with me, and then we'll get this rolling. I'm hoping for I want to be either first or second overall or sixth or seventh, believe it or not. I know a lot of people don't like sixth or seventh, maybe eighth, something like that. I need to start taking a little more Bijan Robinson. For some reason, I just have hardly any exposure to him in Best Ball Mania. I don't really know how or why, to be honest with you, but I need to juice up those numbers. Just showing my exposure a little bit here. Two drafts out of 49, I have Bijan Robinson in Best Ball Mania. But if we look at, all of my teams over the season, my 265, 13.2%. So in the higher stakes tournaments, I got to start taking a little more Bijan. Pretty big believer in the guy. I'm not really sure how that happened because I was taking him a lot early, just I guess not in Best Ball Mania. So it is what it is. Waiting for 4 more people here. Waiting for 4 more. A little bit of news on Joe Burrow came out today. Obviously, I'm pretty plugged in with my Bengals. I think he looks all right. Showed up at practice again, wearing a full sleeve on the leg. I think he'll be back for week 1, even though Jamar Chase is telling him to sit out, wait a little bit, get healthy. I think he will be healthy. Fingers crossed. I don't think you can afford to get, behind the 8 ball with the AFC. Just how good the entire division is, or conference, is. You really just can't afford to get behind the 8 ball. And I think that could happen pretty quick, especially if he misses 4 games, like was kind of brought up by Jamar Chase. So we'll see. But again, the Joe Mixon situation is going to get interesting, to say the least. Who a day? Don't know who that is, but I like the name. Got the 104. Should be interesting. Don't recognize Skittles. I think I've drafted with once or twice. It's your boy Pete. I think I have Short Gamer. Don't know these guys, but I've drafted with a few of them before. See a lot of the similar names in these Pitbull drafts and Dalmatian drafts and things like that. Typically more badges, but I don't mind non-badges in these drafts, but it can get a little bit wonky, which throws a wrinkle into these higher stakes tournaments. But we're gonna roll with it. 104, not exactly what I wanted. I'd rather the 102 or the 7-8, but we'll see. Do I take a guy like Kelsey right here? Probably not, but we'll kind of see who's there. This is honestly, I hate the 104. I really, really hate the 104 more than I hate the 107, 8, 109. Just because you're not getting Jefferson, you're not getting Chase, you're not likely getting McCaffrey, and then it's Tyreek or Cup. Who do you go with? Cup a little bit injury risk right now, kind of baked in. Do I go Tyreek? I might get a little funky and just take Bijan here. Or Stephon Diggs. I'm going to get a little bit funky. I'm going to take Bijan at the 104. Again, bringing up that spreadsheet that I showed a few minutes ago that I built for myself. The Atlanta Falcons have a really, really juicy playoff matchup. Obviously, you got to get there, but I like my chances with Bijan. They got Carolina on the road, warm game, no worried about weather there. Then they play Indianapolis at home in a dome, no concern there. Then week 17 on the road against Chicago. Yes, it's outside. Yes, it's cold, but that also typically, means a little bit more running of the football. So I'm gonna roll the dice on Bijan here. Like I said, kind of coming in, I got to force myself to take more Bijan. So I'm all right with doing that, especially in these higher stakes tournaments. I don't mind pushing up running backs in these higher stakes stuff. I really, really don't. Wide receivers can fly off the board, but again, with those floor plays that you can get late with Boyd and Lazard, I think, there's a few more. Those are just 2 off the top of my head and 2 that I drafted recently to give you an example. There's more than that for sure, but having those high floor guys that are available late, it makes it easier to take a top end running back. And there's every possibility that Bijan Robinson finishes the RB, 1 or 2 this year, When Ezekiel Elliott was a rookie in a redraft league, in a home redraft league, I drafted him second overall when he was a rookie. And that worked out for me. I think he finished RB2 that year. So I think a guy like Bijan in this offense with this coach and with everything that they've invested in this offensive line, with the quarterback that they have, I think that it's possible Bijan, flirts with RB1 territory. I think top 3 is certainly within the realm of possibility. That's for sure. And the high-end, top-end running backs at the end of the day are higher point getters total than wide receivers. So, but it does get pretty thin. Don't get me wrong. It does get pretty thin at the wide receiver position. If you take running back first, especially if you're drafting them so high, third, fourth, fifth overall, it starts to get pretty thin. But that's the bet I've made for myself in this draft. So we'll see how it works out. What do we got? Travis Kelce 109. I think that's a decent edge. I really, really do in these higher stakes drafts. I think Kelce's a fairly big edge, especially if you back it up with Patrick Mahomes. You're going to have to reach a little bit, which I assume this guy's going to do right here. That's what I would do. It just makes sense to have that elite quarterback, elite tight end, then you fill out your roster in between. Last couple picks, you bring it back with some sort of, bring back or correlated tight end and then quarterback, which is extremely easy to do, obviously. He goes Travis Kelce, Tony Pollard. I just bring in Patrick Mahomes there and kind of call it a day if it's me personally. CeeDee Lamb went at the 108. That's interesting. Lamb, Barkley, that's a good start. Cooper Kupp at the 107. That's because I took Bijan so early, but that's a good start for him too. Jalen Waddle, not worried about the injury history. Do I need to back it up with the quarterback right here? I think I can wait, especially since none are off the board currently. I haven't done this start yet, and I might just do it. I don't think I can really say no to this. I'm going to go Bijan, Derrick Henry. Hero RB, bully RB, whatever acronym you want to use for this start, but I like it. I think I'm going to be pretty set. I'm not going to pick a running back for the next few rounds, that's for sure. And then we'll see who gets taken. Patrick Mahomes goes to the Christian McCaffrey drafter. That's a good selection there. It would be the most optimal if T. Higgins falls to him at 27. That thought went through my head, but I really don't think T. Higgins gets to me at the 28 overall pick there. Otherwise, I would have done something like that with Patrick Mahomes. DK Metcalf goes a little bit early. I would have really not minded him at the 28th overall spot, 23rd overall. Calvin Ridley, man, his ADP is skyrocketing right now. He's going to finish comfortably inside the second round, which is just not worth it for me personally. I'm going to be completely out on Calvin Ridley. I've been sprinkling him here and there, but if he's going in the second round, I'm completely out. I'm just not taking him. I'm not taking that risk in the second round with Calvin Ridley. Would I rather have him over Amari Cooper? Probably, but I'm really not drafting a crazy amount of Amari Cooper either right there. So it's a little risky to not take a wide receiver here. Very risky, actually, to not take a wide receiver here. Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts are kind of staring me in the face right now, but I am going to do my best to not take Josh Allen here. I think that, that does give me a huge edge, but I was just touting the San Francisco 49ers pass catchers. I like Debo this year. I really do. Last week's show talked about Debo in depth. I'm buying Debo at ADP. Obviously, I'm taking him six spots ahead of ADP. Seems like wide receivers are flying off the board in this draft. I think the Jalen Hurts drafter. Oh, wow. How do you pass up on Jalen Hurts with Devontae Smith? That's a bit of a mistake, in my opinion. I think if the draft gives you lemons, you know what to do. So this would have been my start if I took Josh Allen there, running back, quarterback, running back sort of thing, running back, quarterback, whatever. Just a little risky for me. But Yeah, it certainly would have been an edge. I would have had an edge on the field at both running back and quarterback. Essentially is what that would have meant if I picked Josh Allen there. And that's where I would have went with that. So I would have had an edge in this pod on the field, the field of 12, because that's all I really care about is I want to get out of this pod and then see where it goes from there. So I would have had an edge at running back and quarterback, not an edge over the Patrick Mahomes drafter, not necessarily an edge over the Jalen Hurts drafter, but I might have had them at running back, right? I'd rather have Bijan and Derrick Henry than McCaffrey and Jonathan Taylor. Yeah, I said it. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes, but I'm not unhappy with what's going on so far with the build. Where do we got here? Where am I drafting? 45 and 42. So obviously I'm going to not be picking a running back likely for the next few rounds. Definitely got to build out my wide receiver room. Got to keep an eye on quarterback because, like I said in the build-up, I want an elite quarterback. And basically, since I haven't taken one of the top 4, it's gonna push up quarterbacks for me, and I might reach on one, and I'm all right with that. I'm all right with reaching on a guy who I perceive as an elite quarterback that's not going in that top 4. So who is that? Joe Burrow, even Justin Fields, Justin Herbert. That's pretty much where it ends. Those 3 guys, Deshaun Watson, you can take late. You can take Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson, and then another guy late, Russell Wilson, even earlier than that, maybe Kirk Cousins. 2 guys like that can play well off each other and should both most likely be 300-point quarterbacks. I'm just looking at the total points here. That's all we care about. We want to advance into the first round of the playoffs and then kind of Jesus take the wheel from there. We'll figure it out. Correlation's nice, but it's not the end of the world. In these tournaments, it's not the end of the world if you're not correlated in the playoffs. So you just want to get there and take those high floor guys, take the high upside early. Again, Deebo Samuel, another guy right there. What did I just say in the pre-show here? I take my shots, my high ceiling guys early, and then high floor guys late or mid rounds, whatever you want to call it, 10th round-ish, that sort of thing. Running backs are starting to fly off the board. Love to see that. 4th round, Joe Mixon ahead of ADP with everything's coming out right now that I just kind of talked about. Again, Drew Davenport, go follow him on Twitter. I shared it on my page. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff going on with Joe Mixon. I can't see him not getting suspended this year. I honestly would have been completely fine if the Bengals just outright cut Joe Mixon in the offseason. And yes, look behind me, huge Bengals fan. I would have been more than okay if they just straight up cut Joe Mixon. And we'll see what ends up happening with him legal-wise, whatever you want to call it. Definitely some wide receivers here. I can kind of take just whoever I think is, tops in my rankings. And again, what have I been saying this entire episode? High ceiling guys early. And this guy also plays in the absolute last fantasy football playoff game that there is. Sunday Night Football, New Year's Eve, Packers, Vikings. It's the last game. There's no Monday Night Football because it's New Year's Eve. Sunday Night Football, and that's not likely to get flexed out. I think the Packers are going to be just good enough, and the Vikings are probably going to, potentially be pushing for a division, definitely a playoff spot. And I think that game probably stays unless things go crazy, and if it does, it does. But as it sits right now, the Packers-Vikings is the final game in the fantasy football playoffs or season in general, really, until the playoff best ball stuff gets rolling. But that's been, having me take a little bit of Christian Watson, a little bit more with that high ceiling, bring it back with high floors. Bingo bango. You've been here. You know what I'm talking about. And after ADP, I'll take that 4-point ADP, drop right there. 2 quarterbacks, bully quarterback here. Patrick Mahomes, Justin Fields. Really, really hate that. And then 2 quarterbacks, no tight ends, no wide receivers. That's really kind of paying the rake, if I'm being honest with you. Can't really get behind that if I'm being straight with you. Jamar Chase drafters are going to take Joe Burrow here. Probably. That's probably what I would do. Miles Sanders. Wow. So quarterbacks are getting pushed down in this draft a little bit. Obviously not going to take a third quarterback there. I'm going to go with Justin Herbert here. I think that there's certainly a path to Justin Herbert being the number one quarterback this year. Yes, I said it. The number one quarterback this year. He's had the fourth highest total points output out of any quarterback in the past 2 seasons. So give me that upside with Kellen Moore coming in, who doesn't give a shit about winning football games. He just wants to put points on the board. Sign me up. I'll bring it back later. Again, I don't really need correlation here. I can bring it back with, Gerald Everett, even Joshua Palmer if I want, Quentin Johnston. I only need one pass catcher. I only really need one pass catcher here with Justin Herbert in this format. I don't need to stack them up, double stack, triple stack. You don't need to do that. You really, really don't. So I'm really happy with how this team's looking, actually. I'm definitely going to be a touch light at wide receiver as it sits, but I think I have an advantage over the field as it sits right now. Let's look at the first few rounds and see if there's another team that, and I'm not just, blowing smoke up my ass here thinking I'm the best there is. I just got a little bit lucky. Justin Herbert typically goes before here, a few points past ADP, had to reach here right at ADP, took Bijan early. I like this team. This paying the rake, to be honest, with two quarterbacks so early just makes zero sense. Literally with this build, if you look at it, I think it was last year, and this is something Davis Pang brought up when he was on the show, a month or so ago, whenever he was on the show. If you had Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes last year, Joe Burrow would have entered your lineup 3 times in the entire season over Patrick Mahomes. So how often do you see Justin Fields entering this lineup over Patrick Mahomes? Consistently, I just don't see it. And then even if he does, how many more points is he giving you? 5, 6 extra points over what Patrick Mahomes puts up on any given week? Just does not make any sense whatsoever. And at the end of the day, I'm sorry to say, but you're paying the rake if you're drafting 2 quarterbacks this early, especially in this format. What else do we got here? No quarterbacks. I probably would have taken Joe Burrow if I was the Jamar Chase drafter, just kind of because at 50th overall, that's behind ADP, and there's a 0% chance he's obviously getting to 71. Someone will take him naked, which this guy did, the 11th drafter. Again, it doesn't matter. I don't mind that. He could bring it back with Irv Smith, Tyler Boyd, tons of options. So, and he's going bully. Yeah, this is, I don't know if Skittles is watching the episode this tonight. He's a little risky here at running back with Josh Jacobs and Breece Hall. Certainly not 2 guys that I'm drafting personally. But other than that, Nick Chubb, Amon-Ra, Joe Burrow, and TJ Hawkinson. I love that. I love that start. I love that build. Not a big fan of the running backs, but besides Nick Chubb, obviously. Let's get back, take a peek here. Where are we drafting? 69. Definitely looking at some wide receivers here. Wouldn't mind bringing in a tight end, but not super excited to grab Pitts. That's fine that he goes. Honestly, Dallas Goedert, look at these totals. That's not enough, and that's consistent for him over his career so far. That's just not enough for me to take him this early. But where do I want to go here? I'm going to take just a high ceiling guy. I'll take a high ceiling guy early. I think he has a reasonable floor, plays in a great offense. I'm just going to go with Gabe Davis. Basically, it's between Gabe Davis and Jahan Dotson for me here. Huge draft for Jahan Dotson. Love the guy. I draft him a ton, but I'm going to go ahead and take the better offense, better quarterback. And just, it's about mitigating risk a little bit with these higher stakes drafts. You don't want to take on a ton of risk. And I already have a relative amount of risk with Deebo Samuel and Christian Watson kind of baked in. I got a rookie running back who's my first round selection. Derrick Henry, he's getting a little older. I have enough risk where, I want to take some bets on some good offenses that I perceive as being kind of, not bulletproof, but like locks to be at least reasonable, enter my lineup as much as possible. Tight end's gonna start to get a little thin, but that's most likely going to lead to me drafting 3 tight ends with this build, which is not the end of the world. I could definitely take Gerald Everett, like I talked about with Justin Herbert, can bring him in as one of my 3. All I want to do is not correlate a single bye week for my tight ends. That's just, if you watch the show, that's something I do not do. There's no point. There's enough talent out there, especially when you're this deep in the draft, that I don't need to, overlap bye weeks with tight ends. I want as much opportunity for these tight ends to enter my lineup as many weeks as possible. So that's what I'll likely do with this team. We'll kind of see, unless I get, Evan Ingram. Even if I go David Njoku, I'm probably doing 3 tight ends. I'm going to bring this back with, deep threat. Again, high ceiling guy. I need to bring in some high floor guys at some point, which I will do. But I definitely got to go wide receiver. Can't take another running back here. Can't reach for a tight end. So I'm just going to correlate with Quentin Johnston here. Really like John Dotson there. And I could correlate with, Deebo Samuel for week 17, but I'm really not playing for week 17, if I'm being honest with this stuff. Again, Washington, San Francisco are 2 very, very good defenses. Do I see that being a high scoring game? Not particularly, right? And if there is, to be honest, it is on the Jahan Dotson side, because the San Francisco 49ers secondary is going to be a little bit weaker this year. Their pass rush is extremely good, but their secondary is actually quite weak in San Francisco. So the Jahan Dotson side of that game stack is preferable for me personally. But we'll see. I've been wrong before. I could be completely wrong on that one, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. So where are we at here? Again, tight end's getting a little thin. Probably going to be a 3 tight end build. Not the end of the world. I think if I can, it'll depend on who I could still go 7 wide receivers with this team. Not likely. It's more likely that I go 5 running backs with this team, and I go 2, 5, 8, 3 is the most likely build that I'm kind of rounding out right now. But we'll see how this shakes out. It's kind of going in waves with this. The wide running backs went on a run, big wide receiver runs, as always. There always is, but we'll see. We'll see how this shakes out. Where am I picking? 93, 100. 93, 100. 1, 2, 4, 0 so far. Could look at tight end. Evan Ingram sitting there. Cortland Sutton gives me some correlation with my Chargers stack, which I don't mind, because I don't mind Cortland Sutton, just as a player, especially with this build. I had him in the other example that I showed you pre-show, so don't mind looking at that. Definitely not going quarterback. I will only go 2 quarterbacks with this build for sure. Big bet on Quentin Johnston. Big bet on Justin Herbert, but not that much of a gamble in my opinion. Pretty high floor, high ceiling quarterback, elite in my opinion, right up there with the top guys. Could absolutely be a 400-point quarterback this year. Dak Prescott goes a little bit early. Dalvin Cook goes a little bit early. That's another guy there's no chance in the world I'm taking risk on in these higher stakes type of tournaments. I'm just not. Wow, 6-1. Hey, it takes Tua. That's all right. Tua to match up with Tyreek. He's got Mark Andrews. He's got the week 17 stack, but again, doesn't matter as much. There's some correlation there. I'm not able to avoid my guy. Rachaad White's one of my guys this year. There's no way I'm not taking him here. I'd rather probably a wide receiver, but if he's going to be in my flex spot a lot of weeks, which I think he will, I'll take it. This is almost certainly going to be a 5 running back build now, especially if these next few picks go the way they most likely will. I might have to take another running back, or I could reach a little bit on a tight end, which I don't mind doing with where we're at. Cousins, A-Rich, Pacheco. Wow, okay, never mind. I think I will be able to get Bateman returned to practice off the pup. I think I will be able to get someone that I want here. We'll see what Coco Palmer does. I'd like to try to bring back that week 17 Green Bay Minnesota Vikings game, but we'll see Gibson. So I'm going to get one of the two guys I want. I want either Cortland Sutton or Evan Ingram. I probably will get Evan Ingram because I'll take him over Sutton if he's got Dallas Goedert already. I can go, Marvin Mims, Dulcich, a guy like that to bring back my week 17. And again, I don't have to. I don't have to bring back. Wow, it's just bully quarterback, bully tight end. Interesting build. I don't love it, but makes my decision easy. I'm going to take Cortland Sutton. And I got my bring back for week 17. Again, not that it matters, but that's the number one, player realistically on the board right now. Might be, there's a path to Cortland Sutton being the wide receiver 1 in this offense. Not that I think he is. I think Jerry Jeudy is definitely going to be the wide receiver 1. He's the guy I'm drafting a ton of. I'm drafting as the wide receiver 1. But with Tim Patrick, getting injured for the year again, unfortunate. Cortland Sutton definitely gets a boost. I love Marvin Mims. I've been taking him a ton everywhere. But at the end of the day, the pecking order goes Jeudy, Sutton, Mims for me. So don't mind bringing that back. It's easy. I got him at an ADP discount, 4 picks past ADP. And he correlates. And he was the number 1 on the board at the time. So yeah, it is what it is. That's nice. That works for me. Dak Prescott went way earlier than I thought. Maybe, I feel like quarterbacks are kind of getting moved up right now. Kirk Cousins and Anthony Richardson certainly went a little early. Tua, I think, is right around ADP. Dak went early. Deshaun Watson, ADP, that's fine. Daniel Jones is fine there. But again, I must not be the only one that thinks this way, that, elite quarterbacks and just quarterbacks in general get pushed up these boards. Again, shout out the Fantasy Dog Pound. I was watching a show earlier today, and someone was taking 15th round Mac Jones sort of thing. In these higher stakes tournaments and, formats, quarterbacks are getting pushed up. It's not only me, it's not just me talking about or thinking that. I think it's pretty common that that's what you got to do. You have to get elite quarterback play, whether that's from one guy or two. So who do we got here? This is aggressive. This is certainly overkill. Patrick Mahomes and Justin Fields is extreme overkill. And he's still, there we go. Dak Prescott, Daniel Jones. That's a perfect example. Love that. That's a great pairing. Obviously bye weeks don't overlap. You can't have that, period. I wouldn't be taking any more than 2 quarterbacks in this tournament, in this Pitbull fantasy tournament style, whatever. I wouldn't be taking more than 2 because I'm not getting anything less than, basically this. Dak Prescott, Daniel Jones. I'm not getting anything less than that at quarterback. I'm really, really not. So that's just the way I see it. Maybe a guy like Geno Smith. I think I have a Geno Smith, Joe Burrow, something like that. Aaron Rodgers in there, Russell Wilson you can throw in there with another guy, Kirk Cousins, maybe something along those lines. But what are we doing here? Definitely want to look at wide receiver again. And this just makes sense. I've been talking about him a lot. Makes sense to do it. High floor guy, bye weeks matchup, makes sense. I got to go Allen Lazard here. Certainly don't need running back. With what I got there, I'll probably only be taking 2 more. Go Allen Lazard. If Aaron Rodgers is there, I'll probably take him just for a little bit of correlation. And I really like Aaron Rodgers this year. Before Hard Knocks came out, I haven't watched any episodes yet, or I think only the first episodes come out. Haven't watched the first episode yet of Hard Knocks, but sounds like everybody is, found, new love for Aaron Rodgers. For me, it never really left. Aaron Rodgers is a phenomenal quarterback. First ballot, no question, Hall of Fame quarterback, one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. Yes, I said it, not like top 2, 3, but I'd put him up there in the top 10. Top 10 greatest quarterbacks of all time. Is that a hot take? I don't know. I don't care. I don't think it is. And there you go. 0 tight ends so far. Will I take... Yeah, I could definitely take a guy like Aaron Rodgers here because it makes sense. If I'm taking 3 tight ends, I can bring it back with Tyler Conklin. So I can go Ty Conklin, Gerald Everett, and a third. I'm not overlapping bye weeks, and they correlate with my quarterbacks. So does kind of force me, not force me, but I would like to take someone that correlates with the Jets, Miami, Washington, Cleveland. No one's really available there, to be honest, so probably no correlation. But again, not the end of the world. Don't really care about it as long as I get points out of. I could get Aaron Rodgers entering my lineup over Justin Herbert at times. Again, it wouldn't be a ton of points, much like the Justin Fields, Patrick Mahomes talk. What's he going to get me? 5 or 6 more points than Justin Herbert? That's fine for where I'm taking them. I'm not taking 2 quarterbacks in the first 4 rounds. It's never going to happen. So, yeah, I don't mind taking that kind of situation there. Really wanting to click Dalton Kincaid here, but I'm also really not, considering everything I just went over. I kind of want to take Dalton Kincaid, but I'm just going to bring in Aaron Rodgers. No need to overthink this. Take him right at ADP. I like him. I'm done at quarterback. No question. I'm completely done at quarterback. And then I can bring back my tight ends to correlate with my quarterbacks. I'm definitely 100% going to 3 tight ends. That's no question in the world. And now I'm probably going to look at running back for my next, at least one of these 2 picks, 41, 48. I almost certainly will be taking a running back, kind of just to fill out that room a little bit more, where I'm only taking 5. I'm pretty much backed myself into taking 5 running backs, 3 tight ends. That's fine. I know that I'm doing that. It is what it is. I'm not upset about it. It's not, I'm not begrudgingly doing it. And now I can plan ahead. I've got, what do we got? 6 more rounds. That's 6 more picks. I have a path. I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm going. What do we got here? Lamar Jackson and Jared Goff. That's okay with Lamar Jackson, obviously, being your elite. Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins. Don't mind that. That's another example of something that I would do that's a minimum. I'm minimum taking guys like Kirk Cousins and Russell Wilson. That's an absolute minimum for what I'm doing. Geno Smith and Jalen Hurts, that's fine. That's more than fine. I'd put that right there with me, Justin Herbert, and Aaron Rodgers. I have Justin Herbert very high personally. And in a tournament like this, I have him even higher. So for me to get him at 52nd overall, whereas ADP is 54, that's to me, that's a huge discount. I was honestly thinking about taking Justin Herbert at pick 45 right here. If Christian Watson wasn't there, if he didn't fall 4 picks past ADP, I would have just taken Justin Herbert right there. So, and worked out. I got both. I'll take it. You got to get lucky to be good. You know what I'm saying? 141. I'll be looking running back. Certainly looking wide receiver or tight end. Completely done at quarterback. Certainly not taking another quarterback. Period. End of story. No bye week concerns at all, really. I like the way this team's shaping up. Dangerous looking squad, if you ask me. If you're in the chat, do me a favor, hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button if you don't mind, if you enjoy the content. Every Wednesday, I'm doing this every single Wednesday night, talking a little bit of strategy. If you have questions, fire them in the chat. We'll chat through it. And draft with me if you want. This is a little bit higher stakes, $75 draft. Doing a Pitbull tonight, but typically Best Ball Mania, maybe a puppy. We'll see if another puppy gets released. I'm trying to get a few more best ball manias in under my belt. I think I'm only at 49. I don't really have a minimum that I want. My minimum was 50 that I wanted to get to this year. Obviously, I'm going to hit that, but I don't really have a minimum past that. Again, I like round numbers, so I'd probably look at like 75, maybe 60, something like that. We'll see. But we'll be doing this all the way up until the season starts. And then when the season starts, I'll keep doing this Wednesday nights, talking more redraft stuff, trades, and waiver wires, things like that. Oh, little sneeze there. All right, where am I looking? Where am I looking? Like I said, done at quarterback. There's none I would take regardless. Jalen Warren was certainly on my radar right there. Really wouldn't have minded Jalen Warren. Kendre Miller, but I'm not taking him right now. I'm going to wait a little bit. It's Rondale Moore. Maybe Rashee Rice, Van Jefferson. I'm going to go Van Jefferson. I'm going to go Van Jefferson because I like the offense. I like the quarterback, and I like the division he plays in. I think that the NFC West is extremely weak as far as defenses are concerned, exception being the San Francisco 49ers. But if they do have a weakness, it's in their secondary. So, wow, Mostert goes early. He's a guy that I was certainly looking at targeting in this build, but that's okay. Like to go with a running back here, but it doesn't make any sense to not take Gerald Everett. It's kind of what I was planning to do this entire time. Take my first tight end, correlates with Justin Herbert. Kellen Moore comes in again. We talked about that, and he likes in his offense, tight ends eat in Kellen Moore's offense. Tight ends do well. So I like that. Also thought about Cole Kmet there, but with what I'm doing, with what I'm building, with how it's correlated, it doesn't make sense not to take a guy like Gerald Everett. So again, I preach like you don't need to double stack, but it makes sense not only for how I'm building this team, but for the offense that I'm building it around, which is the LA Chargers. I would absolutely triple stack the Chargers, no problem. No problem. Other teams, even the Eagles, not only is it difficult to triple stack with, you're not doing it with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith with Jalen Hurts. It's just never going to happen. It's either, Devontae or AJ with Jalen, and then, Dallas Goedert, who I'm not a massive fan of in this format. I'm really not a massive fan of. So you're only single stacking a guy like Jalen Hurts. Josh Allen, that's an easy double stack. Easy. Gabe Davis, Stephon Diggs, Dalton Schultz, Dawson Knox, James Cook. You can bring all these guys in with Josh Allen quite easily, and again, you're getting a good offense. So I'm fully okay with that. With the Chiefs, good chance I'm only single stacking with Kelsey. That's why if I'm this draft or 9th overall, if I get Travis Kelsey, I'll reach a little bit and get Patrick Mahomes. 0%, not 0%, but highly, highly unlikely is he getting back to you, when you drafted Kelsey this late. If you drafted him 6 overall, sometimes you can, it's a little more likely that you can get Patrick Mahomes to drop to you. But again, in this format where quarterbacks are pushed up, it's very, very unlikely. So I don't mind taking them there ahead of ADP. And then I'm single stacking Travis Kelsey with Patrick Mahomes. I'm probably not bringing in any other wide receiver from the Chiefs with, what that team looks like, with their wide receiver corps. So definitely looking running back, wide receiver, tight end. Need two more running backs. I'd like someone, Gainwell was on my radar there for sure. Jeff Wilson left practice today. I don't know if that's a big concern. I don't particularly think it is a huge concern, but, it's news of the day, and that gets a little nerve-wracking. Could go Deontay Foreman, listed as second on the depth chart as it sits. Khalil Herbert's, shown a propensity to get a little bit nicked up throughout the regular season, as he did, a few times in his career. So a guy like Deontay Foreman, who's a big body guy, between the tackles, goal line type of guy with this offense, with this offensive line, with this coach, a lot of potential there for Foreman. I think I got to take Devin Singletary, though, who I just really, really like this year. I don't love correlating running backs in the playoffs. Houston plays Tennessee twice in the fantasy playoffs. But if I am going to do it, against a guy like Henry, it's, the more pass catching back in Devin Singletary. So if Tennessee's up in those games, which is likely the case, if Derrick Henry's healthy, which I'm banking on, that's my bet here, is Derrick Henry's healthy. They get in the playoffs. They play Houston twice. They beat the shit out of them. He's running down their throats, and then they need to throw the ball. And Devin Singletary is the beneficiary of that. And Bob's your uncle. So that's my bet. That's obviously what I'm betting on, with this, build. So I'm gonna make a huge gamble here a little bit. Normally I would take Zamir White, who I love, but I have so much exposure to him. I really, really like him, but I'm gonna go with Gus Edwards here, listed as tops on the depth chart right now. He should be fully healthy. It does concern me that Todd Monken likes to roll running backs with his offense, but with J.K. Dobbins, what he's doing here is really, really silly. He has absolutely zero leverage right now to be talking about, an extension or making more money. This is a prove it year for him, and he's sitting out preseason. He's sitting out training camp. Not a good look, if you ask me, with J.K. Dobbins. So I'm picking up a lot more Gus Edwards shares as it kind of gets closer to the season. I think he got a little bit nicked up or something, but I'm not concerned about nothing's come out that there's been any reason to be concerned about Gus Edwards' health. So that's where I'm wrapping this up. Realistically, I've got 3 running backs that I'm more than happy with entering my lineup at all times. They don't overlap bye weeks, which is nice for these 3 guys. These, they're my steady eddies, my guys that are going to be in my lineup most weeks. I'm banking on Bijan being in my lineup every week. I'm banking on Derrick Henry being in my lineup every week. And then I'm hoping that Rachaad White can give me some flex weeks, maybe some spike weeks where he kicks one of those other running backs down to my flex, right? And then I should be good with some bye week replacement guys, Gus Edwards, Devin Singletary in there, Rachaad White. These guys will work off each other's bye weeks. So I'm done at running back. That's where I'm leaving it. I'm done at quarterback. I have to take 3 tight ends. Obviously, I have to take 8 wide receivers. So I'm going with 2 more tight ends, 1 more wide receiver in this build. And then we're calling it a day. So we'll see how it shakes out. But that's, at the end of the day, regardless of what happens or regardless of who I pick, those are the positions I'm drafting. And that's literally non-negotiable. Unless someone falls extremely, into my lap, which is not going to happen because there are no running backs that I would really even, think about drafting. And same thing with quarterbacks. So it's going to be 2 tight ends, 1 wide receiver. We'll see who I end up being able to get my hands on here. 2-1 tight end builds here. Laporta makes sense for him to take. Probably Fant, I guess. Oh no, he's got Charbonnet and Lockett, so never mind. He doesn't need Fant. He can take whoever he wants at tight end. Mark Andrews, again, another guy. He can take whoever he wants at tight end, but he's only taken one more. If I'm sitting there with Laporta, this guy's taking 2 more tight ends as well, 100%. If not, he should be. If he doesn't, thanks for paying the rake. But I believe he probably will. Mike Gesicki there, still going ahead of Hunter Henry as it sits. Hayden Hurst getting steamed up a little bit. Jake Ferguson getting steamed up a little bit. Trey McBride, I think, is still flying under the radar a little bit, but he has moved up. Luke Musgrave is finally settled where he should be, and maybe even a little higher than he should be, to be honest with you. Michael Mayer, I'm not really drafting this year. Honestly, I think he's fine to draft next year. He's fine to own in the dynasty format, but I'm really just not drafting a ton of him in best ball this year with that team, with that quarterback. I'm just I'm avoiding Michael Mayer right now for now. CPAC goes perfect. Ty Conklin falls into my lap. That's exactly how we drew it up. Easy click. From what is coming out right now, Ty Conklin is the number 2 target behind Garrett Wilson in this offense. That's what it's looking like as far as, Aaron Rodgers is concerned. I really like Ty Conklin this year, especially at cost. He's a guy I talked about a few weeks ago on this show about being this year's Evan Ingram. I think he's this year's, tight end that's going super late in drafts, basically free 16th round tight end that ends up, moving up next year and being, I'm not going to say a league winner because it's tight end, but you know what I'm kind of getting at. He's going to be good. I am going to probably get a tiny bit of correlation here while 0 tight ends for Coco Palmer. Interesting. 277, 7 running backs. Backdooring yourself into 2 tight ends. I really don't like that. Juwan Johnson and someone else. That's a tough hole to kind of get out of. Looks pretty good at wide receiver. I'm going to round up my tight end room. Hunter Henry's a guy that I didn't take enough of. I took too much Mike Gesicki, to be honest with you. Thinking that he was just going to walk in and be this, stud. But realistically, Bill O'Brien needs his tight ends to be able to block a little bit. And Hunter Henry can be that guy. So I got to take more Hunter Henry. And then I'm done at tight end. I like this tight end room. No overlapping bye weeks. Like I always say, no reason to. There's no point. And they correlate with my quarterbacks. Got a little bit of week 17 with Hunter Henry, Gabe Davis, and it just makes sense. I didn't force anything with correlation. Just makes sense. Looks good. Yeah. A little bit of correlation, Tennessee, Houston, and that's the Houston pass catching back, most likely the guy that I perceive as the pass catching back in this offense. So love it. Wouldn't mind a, Chicago Bear, but I'm not going to force that either. So I'm definitely going with an 8th wide receiver. No question about it. If you watch this show a lot, there's a good chance you have an inclination of who I'm going to be taking with this 18th round pick. Is if he's there. And I don't care that he's not, a starter on the depth chart as it sits right this second. I don't care. I don't need him to be a starter, for the first, realistically at all. I'm hoping he spikes into my lineup at some point. With these guys, Debo, Watson, Gabe Davis, even Quentin Johnson, Cortland Sutton, even Lazard, even Van Jefferson. These guys are going to be in and out of my lineup week in, week out. Hopefully Debo and Watson are in my lineup more or less every week. But now I'm just looking for some guys that are going to spike into my lineup here and there. Hopefully it's in the playoffs. Could go Chase Claypool, but he also just got a bit of an injury today. Didn't finish when he was hamstring injuries. Yeah, doesn't look too serious, but hammy and probably not taking Claypool here. I really don't mind Darius Slayton. Again, he was a guy that touched on in the example I gave in the early pre-show there. Tank Dell, don't hate it all. A guy that I really like and not a lot of people seem to is Tutu Atwell. I like Tutu. I'm taking 0% Puka Nakao, and I have some exposure to Tutu Atwell. Why? Last year, he had 2 catches, over 50 yards, 1 went for a touchdown. That's why. That's why. He can spike into your lineup. He spiked into any lineup realistically at least once last year. And I'm gonna bank on that and take my chances with that. He's finally fully healthy. Second round draft capital. I like him. Christian Watson will have a better year than Debo. I don't know about that. If Trey Lance is starting, I could see that. But with Brock Purdy, I don't know about that. Romeo Doubs looks pretty comfortable in that offense. Caught a 50-yard bomb today while burning DJ Turner from my Cincinnati Bengals, who ran 4.2 speed on a go route. Romeo Doubs beat DJ Turner. That's a little bit concerning for me. Again, if you watch this show a lot, you shouldn't be surprised at all with who I'm taking here. Terrace Marshall, my guy. I'm going to rock him till the wheels fall off. I'm just doing it. But I don't know about that. Jordan Johnston, my buddy, my guy, Jordy J. I don't think so. I don't know about that. But we'll see. All right, draft's over. Who do we got here? 2583. Like the build. I like that build. It's one of my more frequent, again, especially in these higher stakes tournaments and drafts. I'm taking a little more 3 tight end, 2 quarterback, 2583. I'm taking a lot more of this build in higher stakes tournaments with, comfortability at running back, which is what I have in this build here. So Justin Herbert, Aaron Rodgers, Bijan Robinson, my first-round pick, 4th overall. Call it a reach. Call it what you want. I don't really care. Derrick Henry, 21st overall. Rachaad White, a guy that I really, really like this year. Devin Singletary, another guy I really like this year. Gus Edwards, listed as the starter as it sits right now. We'll see. Deebo Samuel, I like Deebo a lot. I know he's a bit of a point of contention for people. I like Deebo a lot this year. Especially if Brock Purdy's starting, which is what it looks like, begrudgingly by me. I want to see Trey Lance get a shot, but it is what it is. And if Brock Purdy is a starter, give me Deebo Samuel. Christian Watson, high spike week guy. Really, really don't mind that. Again, it plays in the final game of fantasy football this year. Week 17, last game. I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully he wins me this entire thing. Gabe Davis, Quentin Johnston to pair with Justin Herbert. Cortland Sutton brings it back in week 17 if I get there. Alan Lazard, high floor guy. Van Jefferson, a guy that I just have always really liked. I think, he could absolutely crush this ADP. We'll see how it ends up for him. Terrace Marshall, just can't get enough of Terrace Marshall. I'm drafting him absolutely everywhere. My highest exposed player by a fair margin. Most dollars by a fair margin. Hopefully it doesn't burn me this year. We'll see, knock on wood. Gerald Everett pair with Justin Herbert, Tyler Conklin pair with Aaron Rodgers, Hunter Henry, a little bit of correlation with Gabe Davis. He's the starting tight end. He can block, which Gesicki cannot. So that's what I am looking at for tight end with the Patriots. But there it is. There's the build. There's the draft. Bounce out of that. I would agree. There's just because there's no more talent. There's more talent with the 49ers, but, there's still a lot of, arguably equal talent, not to the 49ers, but equal talent on the Packers with, Dobbs, Watson, Jaden Reed, 2 rookie tight ends that are both pass catchers, both the running backs, A.J. Dillon, averages 40 catches a year in the last 2 seasons. Aaron Jones, 50 catch plus guy in the last 2 seasons. So there's an equal amount of talent, again, not between the Packers and the 49ers, but equal amount of talent on the Packers between all of their players. There's more overall talent on the 49ers, no question. But I would argue that, and they're going to run the ball a lot more with Green Bay. Finally, I think that they finally will run the ball like they should. Finally. So I am probably going to be making a bold take that the Green Bay Packers have 2 1,000-yard rushers this year in both Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. If they do it, I think they should do, and then they finally do. We'll see. But there you go. Terrace Marshall breakout year incoming. Fingers crossed for me. That's it. Do me a favor. Hit that like and subscribe button. We'll be back next week, every Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. where I live in Mountain Time. Check out that thread, Drew Davenport on Twitter. I shared it on my Twitter. If you're Joe Mixon truther, or you want to get a little more clarity on what's going on with Joe Mixon, go give that a read. It's a thread on Twitter. Take a look. Like we always say, again, we'll hit you next week. Come back in a week. But like we always say on Off the Schneid, if you're afraid to be wrong, you will never be right. And we'll see you guys next week.